Good evening, welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Swati Kundra. Here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Tuesday, the 19th of January. Suicide bombing kills over a dozen in Pakistan. Pakistan's Prime Minister meets Saudi King in a bid to end Riyadh-Tehran standoff. And Maldivian Government allows ex-president to travel abroad for medical treatment. And now for all the details, 11 people died and scores injured after a suspected suicide bomber blew himself up in Pakistan's northwestern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's capital city Peshawar. Civilians, including children and several security personnel, became victims of the blast.
The explosion occurred in Khyber Agency's Jamrut area near Karkhano, where the bomber rammed his explosives-laden motorcycle into a roadside security checkpoint.
डेड बॉडीज में एक बच्चा है और 5 एडल्ट्स हैं और बाकी जो हैं जो इंजर्ड हैं जो एडमिट हैं उनमें 2 बच्चे हैं बाकी सारे एडल्ट्स.
The blast, which targeted a vehicle of the Qasadar force, also killed the assistant line officer Nawab Shah along with other security personnel. The powerful explosion also damaged vehicles parked nearby. No terror group has claimed responsibility of the attack. Khyber is part of Pakistan's semi-autonomous tribal belt on the Afghan border. The restive region has long been wrecked by terrorist violence and is known to be a militant stronghold. The attack took place in an area where security forces had stepped up their fight against Pakistani Taliban and other militant groups.
After 3 years of ban, Pakistan has unblocked popular video sharing site YouTube. The Google-owned video sharing site was blocked in 2012 after it had refused to remove a video that Pakistan considered blasphemous. Pakistan's telecom authorities have settled for a local version of YouTube that allows the government to filter material it considers objectionable. Social media websites like the YouTube and Facebook have faced periodic blocks in Pakistan over content that is deemed to be blasphemous. Meanwhile, Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif called on Saudi King Salman to bridge the gap between Saudi Arabia and Iran. He is also likely to meet top leadership of Iran in Tehran.
Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, who was accompanied by Pakistan Army Chief General Raheel Sharif, met with Saudi King Salman in Riyadh on Monday to discuss the Saudi-Iran standoff. The Pakistani leaders are said to have highlighted Pakistan's perspective in the Middle East situation and stressed on the need for opening up communication channel between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Islamabad has been aiming to mediate between the arch-rivals in Middle East. The Pakistan government has been avoiding taking sides and seeking to diffuse the tension through diplomatic dialogue. Prime Minister Sharif is said to have called for a resolution in the larger interest of Muslim unity. Row between Saudi Arabia and Iran escalated after Riyadh's execution of a prominent Shiite cleric. Saudi Arabia had severed all ties with Iran after angry Shiite protesters stormed into Saudi embassy in Riyadh. Another agenda of the meeting was the Saudi-led military alliance of which Pakistan is a part. The Saudi and Pakistani leaders discussed on bilateral relations in all fields, including defense, security, economic and commercial cooperation.
Literacy rate in Pakistan-administered Kashmir is declining. Reasons are poor infrastructure and lack of facilities in the government-run schools. In absence of a proper education policy, demotivated students are frequently dropping out of schools. A report.
The condition of government-run schools in Pakistan-administered Kashmir is pitiable. Students in the region today face an uncertain future as the quality of education is degrading due to lack of basic infrastructure and educational facilities. Distraught parents and school employees says that authorities turned a blind eye towards the grievous issues.
हमारे आज़ाद कश्मीर के जो प्राइमरी अदालत जात हैं, हमारे जो प्राइमरी और मिडिल अदालत जाते हैं जो ज़लज़ले के बाद मैच शेल्टर और ओपन फील्ड में सर एक मिनट ओपन ग्राउंड में तालीम दी जा रही है. हमारे पास वो स्टूडेंट ज़ेर तालीम हैं जिनका कोई पुरस्कार नहीं, वो फीस देने के काबिल भी नहीं, बिल्डिंगें नहीं, अदारा जात के लिए बिल्डिंग नहीं, सहूलतें नहीं। उसके बाद वो स्टूडेंट जो एक गरीब मजदूर का स्टूडेंट है वो हमारे पास ज़ेर तालीम है, हम तो मुफ्त तालीम दे रहे हैं।
Due to lack of funding, public school have acquired the form of dilapidated buildings and private school have taken their place. The school employees say that authorities indulge in large-scale corruption and only facilitate the rich and the influential. No actions are taken against private institutes which often break norms, they added.
हमारा 5 साल से प्राइवेट अदारा जात का झगड़ा चल रहा है। वो कहते हैं कि हम एलिमेंट्री बोर्ड कायम हुआ है, बोर्ड में नहीं आ रहे हैं। हम कहते हैं आप एलिमेंट्री बोर्ड में आओ, घोड़ा भी हाजिर है और मैदान भी हाजिर है। उनका अपने एक नेटवर्क बनाया हुआ है, वो खुद रिजल्ट बनाते हैं, खुद पेपर मार्क करते हैं। उनका कोई सिस्टम नहीं है। फीसिस इतनी है जो सत्यानाश आज़ाद कश्मीर के अंदर किया है वो सिर्फ प्राइवेट अदारा जात का और प्राइवेट सेक्टर का है। सरकारी सतह पे 75% इस वक्त लोग जो है वो मुस्तफीद हो रहे हैं एजुकेशन से। ये कतन ब्लेम जो है ये एजुकेशन के खिलाफ ये गलत है। उसको परसेंटेज के एतबार से जो है तो हमारे हिस्से में सिर्फ 5% आता है, 95% हमारी पोजीशन बेहतर है इंशाल्लाह और रहमत में।
Locals feel Pakistan, which had once made tall promises, has abandoned the region. For those who cannot afford to shell out huge sum of money, education remains a distant dream. Rapid development of educational infrastructure is need of the hour to cater to the growing needs of students in Pakistani Kashmir.
United States has urged Myanmar to release all political prisoners before transition of power takes place in the country next month. The National League for Democracy Party is set to form new government after winning the historic election in November last year.
United States Deputy Secretary of State Antony Blinken advocated for the release of all political prisoners who have been jailed for years under the junta regime which ruled the country for over 5 decades. He urged Myanmar's President Thein Sein to release all such prisoners by the time the transition of power is completed so that no one is in jail because of their political views when a democratic party forms the government. Blinken is the first US envoy who has visited Myanmar after the country's democracy icon Aung San Suu Kyi's party swept the historic polls in November.
We urged the government, the existing government, to complete the process and to release all political prisoners. Indeed, one of the great legacies of this government is the work that it has done on reform broadly and in releasing political prisoners in particular. And it would be a fitting completion of that legacy to release all political prisoners so that by the time the transition is complete and a new government takes office, no one is in jail because of their political views.
He also stated that the government should also free dissidents who were prosecuted in recent months, which raised the fear of return of old days of oppression. According to a December report from Assistance Association for Political Prisoners, over 128 political prisoners are serving sentences in Myanmar's jail for expressing dissent. Blinken also met President Thein Sein and other members of the government, as well as the head of the incoming government, National League for Democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi, during his visit.
Moving on to news from Maldives, the Maldivian government has allowed former President Mohammed Nasheed to travel to London for medical treatment. The authorities waived criminal liability on the guarantor.
Nasheed left Maldives on Monday night for Colombo, where he will spend few days before travelling to London for a spine surgery. His release has been secured by a frantic lobbying by diplomats from UK, US, India and Sri Lanka. The deal for Nasheed's temporary release was brokered by the international and regional communities. But things went awry after Maldivian government on Saturday imposed a last-minute condition by demanding one of his relatives to stay behind, who would be criminally liable until his return in 30 days. Nasheed refused to travel, saying he would not compromise on the freedom of his relatives. But the Abdullah Yameen government gave in to the intense diplomatic pressure on Monday by waiving criminal liability on the guarantor. Nasheed's elder brother Ibrahim Nasheed signed forms as his guardian to complete the formalities. Nasheed was sentenced to 13-year jail term in March last year on terrorism charges. His appeal against the conviction is lying pending in the Supreme Court. International communities like the UN, EU and Amnesty have demanded for his immediate release, with many criticizing his prosecution as politically motivated.
The essence of Indian culture was presented at a recent fashion show in India's entertainment capital, Mumbai. With an array of colors, the splendid ensemble took fashion enthusiasts by storm. Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. Suicide bombing kills over a dozen in Pakistan. Pakistan's Prime Minister meets Saudi King in a bid to end Riyadh-Tehran standoff. And Maldivian Government allows ex-president to travel abroad for medical treatment. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time tomorrow. Good night.